the Denver Nuggets. Now, they're out of the playoffs. Minnesota's moving on. There's a couple questions that we need to ask. And the first question, I believe, is Calvin Booth. Are you still hanging with the kids? Are you still loyal to the draft picks? Are you loyal to this philosophy that you have in building a dynasty? One of the quotes that Calvin Booth came up with was that he's not worried on winning back-to-back titles. He's worried on building a dynasty. I hate to tell Calvin this, but building a dynasty is also imperative that you win back-to-back titles. Now, people will debate me on whether the San Antonio Spurs are a dynasty. I think if you don't have back-to-back titles, it doesn't count. You can have a 10-year run where you win 4 and you're always there. But if you don't have back-to-backs in it, it's hard for us to give you the flowers that you're looking for. And Denver had an opportunity to do that. They were on their home court, and it was all the bugaboos that we had talked about before. It was the lack of veteran depth on the bench, because Jokic was out there playing 47 minutes. He was absolutely gassed. You had Jamal Murray, who was clearly compromised from the last series. And then the other thing that we need to get into, and this is a perfect segue, MPJ, Michael Porter Jr., didn't show up in this series. And the problem with that is that young man is making $35.8 million a year. And having a game where you score 4 points or 7 points in a game where your team is needing you to know your bench is compromised, know you don't have enough. Malone has now shrunk the bench to only Reggie Jackson. So the only person coming off the bench is 6'2" Reggie Jackson. At this point, that as somebody who's been on this team for 4 years, that it looks like you're gonna need to go ahead and contribute a little bit more. And I think the length of the Timberwolves bothered him tremendously. I think the quickness of how they closed out really bothered him. And I think his lack of on-ball initiation, or on-ball creativity, if you want to call it that, I think that really, to me, is the big point here. So my question about Michael Porter Jr. is this: are the Denver Nuggets in a position to stomach cutting away a piece of their continuity, a piece of their team that has been together for a while, and getting somebody who has a little bit more on-ball creation juice? Because if Michael Porter Jr. attacks those closeouts with any confidence and has any sort of handle, they win this series. They probably don't go to 7. No disrespect to the Timberwolves, you know how I feel about Ant, and we'll get to him a little bit later. But I think it's fair to ask that Michael Porter Jr. is still fairly young. I think he's 26 at this present time. The contract for what he does is still good. And maybe people can talk themselves into, he can be our number 3 or whatever it is. Or maybe Michael Porter Jr. just needs to take more shots. Maybe this is the point where he needs to go off on his own and graduate to a situation that's better suited for his talents. I don't know. But I do know this, is that in the game 7 where you're at home, and Jokic and Murray are putting up these incredible numbers. When you get 7 from Michael Porter Jr. and you get 4 from Aaron Gordon, that's not nearly enough to combat what's going on the other side. So those are the couple things that I think that the Nuggets need to look at. Now we'll do a more in-depth breakdown as the seasons